You're right. Zorro does count as historical fiction. Definitely.
It still counts as historical, even if you've lived through it. You've literally lived through everything. Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome once again to stately Vaughan Manor. And today we're going to be talking about some books which I'll be reading during my 500 book challenge. Yes, I've made this kind of video before, but not about this particular genre, a genre which I like quite a lot. So my 500 book challenge, the challenge to read 500 books that I already own before I buy any new ones. I've got thousands of books, so a very doable challenge, just time consuming, especially considering some of the books I'll be reading are kind of long, including some of the books I'll be talking about today. Because I'll be talking about books in the historical fiction genre. Historical fiction. Now this is a type of book I don't hear talked about too much on BookTube. I'm not exactly sure why. What is it? What is it, little one? Yes? Zorro wants to tell everybody that he does enjoy historical fiction. It's your favorite genre? It's Zorro's favorite genre is historical fiction. It is. Who knew? I mean, he's only been alive for a year, so pretty much everything is historical fiction to him in fiction, right? It's all before your time. Okay. Go over here for a minute. Excuse me. So let's talk about the books. I made a list. Actually, Roger and I made a list. He can tell me all about the historical accuracy of all of these books as I go through them, since Roger has lived through every single event described in these books. First, we're going to start with a series of books, which I've only read a couple of. Now, this is the granddaddy of historical fiction, so he had to be in here. This is Sir Walter Scott. Sir Walter Scott's Waverly novels. The Waverly novels. A series of books, which is not a series that tells one story or interrelated stories, really. It's more just a series of historical novels that Sir Walter Scott wrote. Most of them Scottish history, I think, although not all of them. Ivanhoe was not. I've only read a couple of these. Ivanhoe I've read, Rob Roy I've read, and that was a while ago, so I should probably revisit that since my memories are fuzzy on that one. But he wrote quite a few books in this series. I didn't even write down how many. That's what a lame booktuber I am. But I do know that I need to get to these books. I have them all on Kindle waiting for me, and they've been waiting for me for quite some time. So this is a good opportunity to read those books. Next, James Clavell and the Asian Saga. Now this is a series of 6 books. I've read one of them this year, which was Shogun. The first book in the series, Shogun. Fantastic book. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So, of course, I bought all the other ones on Kindle. Where they await me. I haven't read any more of them this year because they're all kind of long and I have all these other things to read, but definitely starting next year, I'm going to start getting back to this set of books. I want to read all of them. So I hear that most of them are pretty good, but none of them are really as good as Shogun. But that's really not a surprise since Shogun was just so darn good. So yeah, I'm looking forward to all of these very long books. Of course, you know, they had to be very long, but that's okay. This next set of books is also full of long books. This is from Colleen McCullough. Colleen McCullough, who you may know from this other book. This is The Thornbirds by Colleen McCullough, and this is the Masters of Rome series, which is not The Thornbirds. But you know what? I should check this out again, too. It's soon to be a spectacular television event. That's going to happen soon. Man, I can't wait for that. That's going to be awesome. But she wrote a whole series of novels of ancient Rome, which take place at the time of, just before the rise of Julius Caesar and Augustus Caesar and the fall of the Roman Republic. So basically that whole time of before the fall and after the fall of the Roman Republic and the beginning of the empire. That's when this set of novels takes place. I actually read the first one, which was The First Man in Rome, and I really enjoyed it. But for some reason at the time, it was a long time ago, before, you could just order books online. And I had a hard time, I think, at the time finding the second book. I'd find every book except the second one. So, hold on. Can you behave yourself? Just behave yourself for 5 minutes. Can you do that? 5 minutes and don't scratch at things and cause terrible trouble, okay? No more trouble. There you go. That's what happens when you have a room, and there she goes scratching things. What are you even doing? Anyway, where was I? Oh yes, the Masters of Rome series. So I did read the first book in the series. Had a hard time at the time finding the second book in the series, and so never continued. This was way back a long time ago. Where was I? Oh yes, the Masters of Rome series. Anyway, finally I'm going to read the rest of this series because I really enjoyed that first book. I got all the other books on Kindle. For a long time they weren't available on Kindle for some reason, but now they are. Or at least they were when I bought them. I wonder if they still are. Books are funny that way. Sometimes they'll show up, then they'll disappear, and then they'll come back. But at the moment, I think they're all on Kindle. They're all available, I think. Anyway, this is supposed to be a great series. I remember really enjoying the first book. So, there's that. This is a disaster of a video already. Forgive me, my friends, for this disaster of an historical fiction video. Let's see. Next, we're going to be talking about an author I've never read, but I only hear good things, and you really can't talk about historical fiction without talking about this guy, I think. That's Bernard Cornwell, and the Warlord Chronicles, starting with The Winter King. The Winter King. So, The Winter King is about King Arthur, I think. It's supposed to be a more realistic take on King Arthur, I believe. I literally know nothing except that it's supposed to be good and that there are 3 books in this series. I have the first one in trade paperback. I got the other 2 on Kindle when I decided to read the series, and then I never did read the series, but I have it. So there's that. But next, let's talk about John Jakes and the Kent Family Chronicles. So I do have all of these books in hardcover, and they are the old book club editions that everybody had back in the 80s, I believe. I think everybody had this set of books, starting with The Bastard. This was a series of 8 books, and it chronicles the Kent family as they go through history and meet a bunch of important people throughout history, and that's all I know about it. I don't really know much about this series other than that, and that they made a mini series out of it, and I don't know if that was any good. But John Jakes is supposed to be a big deal. I have read a couple of his books that have nothing to do with his historical fiction, so it's about time I should get around to these. They've been around forever. This is another series of books that I don't hear talked about ever on BookTube. If BookTube was around, 30 years ago, probably everybody would be talking about it. But nobody talks about these books anymore. Or John Jakes. I don't hear him talked about that much often. either. So I'm going to read all of these for the 500 book challenge. And he also wrote, was it North and South, which was an absurdly huge trilogy. Like the paperback books are like each gigantic. I'm kind of glad I don't have those, because then I would feel obligated to read them for the 500 book challenge. And they're enormous. The Kent Family Chronicles books are not quite that long. But they're supposed to be at least fun. They're supposed to be fun, I think. Has anybody, other than Steve Donoghue, has anybody read these books? Let me know. Then, I don't know, this next book, I've got this next book and its sequel, and I have no idea if it's actually any good or not. I think the reviews on this one were not positive from critics. This is The Winds of War. The Winds of War from Herman Wouk. And I remember when I was younger, the television series for this book, and I have the book, and I have its sequel, War and Remembrance, but I don't know if they're any good. Again, these are books I never hear anyone talk about. So I don't know if these books are any good. So I'm going to read them, and I will let you know if they're any good at all. I remember they were like bestsellers when I was younger, but again, do they suck? Are they good? Who knows? I will let you know what I think when I finally get around to reading them. Next, I have some books that are actually in the library, so I don't have to put magic pictures up. I was literally just too lazy to just go throughout the house and pick up. I'm the laziest booktuber ever, obviously. So here's another few books that I'll be reading. This is probably one that I'm looking forward to the most. Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel and its two sequels. A.J. Dunn, the fantastic booktuber A.J. Dunn, reads and writes, sent me these books a while ago, and I still haven't read them. Now, I've heard different things about these books. Most of what I've heard is positive. Steve Donoghue thought it was great, I believe. I think CriminOlly thinks this book sucks. Who knows what I will think about it, but I've got it, and it's two sequels, thanks to A.J. Dunn. So finally, I'm going to get around to reading Wolf Hall. This is one of the ones I really want to get to. So I want to get to that. What else do I have? I have this sitting here. This is the Makioka Sisters. Makioka Sisters? I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that, because of course I must be. By Junichiro Tanizaki. And this is about the Makioka sisters before World War II. So it's an historical novel that takes place in Japan before World War II, as far as I understand. And it's supposed to be really, really, really good. So I have that right here, ready to read. And then this one I found in a little free library. This is Eiji Yoshikawa Taiko. This is the author of Musashi. Musashi was a book I liked an awful lot, but I've never read Taiko. Now this one was a little damaged when I found it in the free library, but that's okay. It's just a little damage on the dust jacket. It was free. Can you believe it? It was free. But this is what I'm going to end off with for this list in this very chaotic, dog-filled video. But I'm sure I have more historical novels. Well, actually, hold on. There's another one sitting right over here by Roger. Has anybody read this book? This is Gone to Soldiers by Marge Piercy. Yeah, a brilliant best-selling novel, apparently, which I've never even heard of for some reason. But I have it, so let me know if I should read this, because it looks kind of intriguing from what I've read on the back, that it's about, well, let's see. It says the other World War II, because this is the other World War II, not the war fought on the front lines, but the war fought mostly by women on the factory lines, the food lines, and behind the enemy lines in Europe. That actually sounds pretty interesting. So, Gone to Soldiers. Let me know if I should read this book. It's been hanging out here forever, and I have not read it. So I think that's everything I've got lying around or thought to talk about. Let me know if you've read any of these books. I would be really interested because, again, a lot of these I haven't heard too much about. And they are going to be part of my 500 book challenge. Okay, guys, do you have anything to add? You know, he's been unusually quiet. He's still a little bitter about the whole not buying books thing. So, a little bitter. At least he showed up on camera. Okay, guys, I will catch you next time.